my husband left me and our 4-year-old daughter alone in a snowy mountain, saying, "I'm done with you two. Just die here." The cold wind cut through us, making it hard to move as we shivered in the freezing air. I didn't know where we were. My daughter suddenly pointed ahead and said, "We just have to follow Grandma." I saw nothing there, but I decided to trust her because she has a special ability. My name is Nancy, a 32-year-old who works from home. I met my husband, Mark, who's the same age, at a group blind date. He was a charming and successful entrepreneur. I fell for him, and we got married. Mark's family was well known and respected in the community, so people looked up to our relationship. After we got married, we moved in with Mark's parents because my mother-in-law needed constant care. She was very frail. Mark's dad welcomed me warmly and said, "Nancy, I heard you're a nurse. We're so thankful to have you here." I agreed to help and quit my job as a nurse to take care of her, starting to work remotely as a web designer instead. It was a flexible job I enjoyed. However, after 3 years of marriage, we still didn't have a child. Mark's business was doing great and expanding, but he became obsessed with work. He was always busy and rarely came home. I tried to talk to him, saying, "Mark, your mom isn't well. She wants to see you, even if she doesn't say so." But he brushed it off, saying, "You're there for her, aren't you? I'm busy." No matter how much I tried, Mark never listened. I wanted my bedridden mother-in-law to see our child before she passed away, and I felt guilty that I couldn't give her a grandchild sooner. "I'm sorry we haven't had a baby yet," I told her. "Don't say that. I'm just happy to have a daughter like you, Nancy," she replied gently. She was like a real mother to me, since I had lost my own parents when I was young. When the weather was good, I'd take her out in her wheelchair or prepare soft food she could eat with ease. I tried my best to make her life comfortable. One day, she called me to her bedside and said, "You're going to have a lovely daughter soon. She'll be born when the jasmine blooms, so name her Jasmine." If that's true, I'd be happy," I said, feeling confused. I thought maybe her illness was making her imagine things. Not long after, she passed away, and I was devastated. I had been by her side every day since I got married 3 years ago. Shortly after the funeral, I found out I was pregnant. The due date was in July, the season when jasmine flowers bloom, just as my mother-in-law had said. I was stunned but overjoyed. I couldn't wait to tell Mark the news. "Mark, listen, I'm pregnant," I exclaimed when he came home. "Really? I don't like kids, and I'm not interested in having any right now," he said flatly. "Are you serious?" I asked, shocked. "If you want to have it, go ahead, but I'm not taking care of it. You'll have to raise it on your own. You're choosing this, so figure out the money yourself," he said harshly. I was speechless. I noticed he smelled like alcohol every time he came home, and his clothes reeked of perfume. I knew where he was spending his time. To him, I was just a convenient maid who looked after his parents. But I couldn't give up on my baby. Using my savings and income from working, I managed to prepare for her arrival. Just like my mother-in-law predicted, our daughter was born during Jasmine's blooming season. We named our daughter Jasmine. She was a beautiful baby with glowing skin, and she looked a bit like my mother-in-law. Jasmine grew up healthy, but she was a little different. Even as a baby, she would laugh and wave her hands at times when no one was around. By the time she was 2, she started speaking in broken words and would often talk to the family shrine. "Grandma, do you like Jasmine? Jasmine loves Grandma too," she would say. When I asked her who she was talking to, she just smiled. By the time she was 3, I often caught her having long conversations in the corner of our loft. "Hey Jasmine, who are you talking to?" I asked. "Well, Grandma said she would give me her bracelet in the drawer," she replied. "Grandma did." I was curious. "What bracelet?" She said she knitted them from the fabric of her favorite sundress. Intrigued, I opened my mother-in-law's drawer and found a hand-knitted bracelet. Watching Jasmine wear it happily, my father-in-law said, those were made from the sundress my wife loved when she was young. She was skilled at knitting." It seemed Jasmine could truly communicate with my deceased mother-in-law. However, I worried it might put Jasmine in danger, so I kept it to myself. Our life was peaceful for a while, but good times didn't last. Mark was spending money carelessly and neglecting his word. His company was on the verge of collapsing, and we struggled to pay our living expenses, relying on my father-in-law's help and my income. Eventually, Mark had to ask his dad for money, which helped his company recover, but I doubted he would change his carefree ways. One day, Jasmine said something alarming. "Dad is planning to do something bad." "What do you mean?" I asked. "I don't know, but Grandma seems worried. She told me to be careful." I didn't fully understand, but her words stuck with me. What trouble could Mark be in? I had a feeling it might be about his company or money, but without proof, I couldn't confront him. To be safe, I started carrying a voice recorder and told Jasmine not to mention seeing her grandmother. While going through Mark's things, I found many receipts from strip clubs and bars. Despite his company's troubles and asking his father for help, his partying habits didn't change. I also found a note that said, "Consult the gang about the plan." What gang was he referring to? If Jasmine was right, my mother-in-law was warning us, and danger might be approaching for Jasmine and me. I felt chills run down my spine. For weeks, I stayed on high alert, but nothing happened. Gradually, my worries faded, and I went back to my normal routine. One day, Mark came home unusually cheerful. "Thanks to Dad's help, my business is doing better. We're making more profits. How about we go on a family vacation for the first time?" "Oh, really?" I asked, surprised. "I booked a hot spring near an amusement park in the mountains. Jasmine will love it," he said. Though Jasmine was excited, I still had doubts about Mark. I couldn't shake off the desire to believe Mark had genuinely changed, especially with the gentle demeanor he was showing, reminiscent of old times. This trip could be a chance to mend our relationship, so I agreed to the family vacation. As I prepared for the trip, I slowly forgot about Jasmine's warning and became excited. On the day of the trip, I was surprised to see the rental car had snow-track tires, which made me uneasy. We were heading to the snowy mountains, but I didn't want to spoil the mood, so I quietly sat her in the back seat with Jasmine. As we drove deeper into the mountains, I began to feel something was off. More than an hour in, Mark took his side road, and I became concerned. "Hey, dear, isn't this road strange? Are you sure we're going the right way?" I asked, but he didn't respond. His face was tense, his eyes fixed straight ahead. Anxiously, I held Jasmine tightly and bit my lip. Suddenly, Mark stopped the car on an isolated path. "You two are of no use to me anymore. Sleep quietly here," he said, dragging us out of the car. "Oh, I almost forgot. I'll be taking your phone," he added. "Wait, dear," I screamed, but he ignored me. With a smirk, he drove away, leaving us behind. We were alone in a thick, snowy forest, with no idea where we were. Although Mark had taken my phone, I had secretly packed a spare one in my backpack. Unfortunately, there was no signal to call for help. I had a sinking feeling since we left the interstate, but thankfully, both Jasmine and I were dressed warmly, and I had packed essentials in case of emergencies. As the cold wind bit through my clothes, I took out a disposable hand warmer from my backpack to warm us both. I gave Jasmine a caramel candy to help calm her nerves. Despite my efforts, the snow continued to fall, and it felt like we might be stranded forever. What should we do? I wondered, anxiety rising within me. I was confused when Jasmine suddenly shouted, "Ma'am, Grandma says she's coming over here." I looked in the direction she was pointing, but I didn't see anyone. It seemed like Jasmine could see something I couldn't. "We should do what Grandma says," she insisted, confidently walking ahead. I decided to follow her. I wanted to believe in her mysterious power, and that everything would be okay. I held Jasmine's hand tightly as we carefully walked through the deepening snow, trying not to slip. "Ma'am, I see a light. Grandma says to go towards it," Jasmine exclaimed. I looked and, indeed, I saw a light shining in the distance. Relief washed over me, felt like crying with gratitude for my mother-in-law. We finally reached a hotel at the foot of the mountains and decided to rest and warm up. I had some extra cash in my backpack, So I knew we could stay for a bit. At that moment, I started planning my revenge against Mark. I won't forgive you for this. I will find out why you wanted us dead. 5 days later, I contacted my father-in-law. He was surprised to hear from me, but was overjoyed to learn that Jasmine and I were safe. He quickly came to pick us up from the hotel. When he arrived, he told me something shocking. Mark had been telling everyone that Jasmine and I had fallen into a valley and died. I couldn't believe it. He even claimed we had searched for us, but couldn't find us until spring and that they were preparing for our funeral. My father-in-law tried to convince him to wait, but Mark went ahead with the plans anyway. When I visited my husband, I found out the truth. Preparations were indeed being made for our funeral, with large portraits of Jasmine and me displayed prominently. And then, just like that, Jasmine and I showed up unexpectedly. The relatives helping with the funeral preparations looked shocked, almost dropping to their knees when they saw us. My husband stammered in a silly voice, "Ah, you're alive." "Unfortunately for you, we're alive and well," I replied. Ow," he stuttered, clearly confused. "You thought we would die, didn't you, after you left Jasmine and me deep in the snowy mountains?" I accused him. People around us began to murmur in surprise. If my husband had left us there on purpose while telling everyone we had fallen, it was a serious crime. "Stop lying," he shouted. "Can you say the same after hearing this?" I played an audio recording I had hidden. "I don't need you guys anymore. Just die here," Mark's voice echoed, causing more murmurs among the crowd. "I never said that. She's making it all up," he protested, but he looked pale and his hands were shaking. To finish exposing him, I played a video from my phone. In it, Mark said, "As planned, I abandoned them in the snowy mountains. With the life insurance money from my wife and daughter, my company can't recover, and I can't live a luxurious life. I'll even pay back the loan I took from your group, so please wait a little." The video clearly showed him talking on the phone from a car. He scrambled to turn off the camera, but it was too late. Everyone around us was whispering, giving Mark cold looks. "How did this get out? Who did this?" he demanded. "I asked your father to copy the footage from the rental car's dashcam," I replied. "Dad, you abandoned your own son. Why would you side with a stranger?" Mark confronted my father-in-law, but my father-in-law looked furious, glaring at Mark. "It's no surprise you'd be abandoned," he said. "After all, you secretly took out a large life insurance policy on not just Jasmine and me, but also on your own father." "What?" I exclaimed. "You borrowed money from a shady organization and then targeted our lives. That's unbelievable." My father-in-law stood tall, holding out the life insurance policy he found in Mark's drawer. "You were planning to kill me too, weren't you? You wanted all my assets for yourself." "How dare you call yourself my son?" my father-in-law shouted. With all the accusations and evidence against him, Mark found himself cornered and made a surprising statement. "Look, everyone is alive, so it's all good, right? I was forced into this by loan sharks. I had a tough time too, so please forgive me." "Don't make me laugh. There's no way I can forgive you. I'm reporting this to the police." "No way. We're family. You can't let this slide." "Right, please," Mark begged. He got down on his knees and bowed in front of us. My father-in-law and I exchanged glances, shocked. "I'm sorry. I'll change. Please forgive me. Spare me from the police, and I'll turn my life around." With his forehead on the ground, tears and snot on his face, Mark looked pathetic. "I'm utterly disgusted with you. You can't go to hell." Mark seemed to think his apology would fix everything, but he looked stunned when he heard this. One of the relatives listening to us had called the police, and soon they arrived to take Mark away. With all the evidence against him, Mark was convicted of serious crimes for trying to kill his wife, daughter, and father. He will likely be in prison for a long time. My husband's company went bankrupt, and his life will be miserable, especially since his family, including my father-in-law, has turned their backs on him. His friends, who led him astray, were also arrested. We got divorced, and I received full custody of our daughter, Jasmine. My father-in-law asked us to form a special adoption bond with him, and he gifted us his inheritance while he's still alive. Now, Jasmine and I live with my kind father-in-law. We enjoy watching Jasmine grow up together. He often tells me to find a good man and get remarried, promising his blessings. But for now, I don't plan to get married. I'm very happy with my life as it is. The other day, Jasmine whispered in my ear, Grandma says she's glad, but we can't meet her anymore, so she's saying goodbye. It made me a bit sad, but if it means there's nothing my mother-in-law needs to protect us from anymore, then I guess it's a good thing. Dear mother-in-law, I promise to protect Jasmine with everything I have. I made this promise as I placed my hands together in front of her grave.